Under old business, I hope Mr. Duncan and Mr. Chapman won't care, but we want to move the early childhood folks up and let them go ahead and talk. Early childhood education is letter E. We're going to jump down to Mrs. Rovat and Mrs.
Because they have to
Cantrell.
get early to bed.
Mrs. Cantrell will report on the early childhood special education classes and the Bulldog preschool program. So welcome. Please come on down and share with us. And we're glad you're here, and thank you for being patient. And if, Kathy, if you'll introduce the folks that are with you, and Jamie, if you will as well.
Do you want us to present early childhood special ed first and then
Sure.
Jamie's? How would you?
Sure.
So I'm Kathy Rovat, an early childhood special education teacher for Rolla. We have Lauren Bain, who is also a full-time early childhood teacher. We have Ashley Blackburn, who's a half-time teacher. Jill Cedarberg on the end, who's also a half-time teacher and process coordinator half-time. And Cindy Harris, our speech therapist. We also have 4 paraprofessionals that work with us. We have another half-time speech pathologist. We have a physical therapist, 2 occupational therapists, and 2 CODAs, and we contract those services. And that's our early childhood special education team. We are housed at Wyman Elementary, but we serve the whole school district. We currently serve 55 students aged 3 through 5 or kindergarten eligible. We add students throughout the school year because they can start the program on their 3rd birthday. Our numbers per year fluctuate. We do not have a cap on the number of students we work with. We have a 4-day-a-week program. We have a morning session typically for our younger students and an afternoon session for our older students. And then the school district does provide busing as long as the child resides within the school district boundaries. Some of the disabilities we've worked with over the years include autism, Down syndrome, spina bifida, visual impairment, hearing impairment, including hearing aids and cochlear implants, hydrocephalus, microcephalus, drug and alcohol affected babies, sound system disorder, language impaired, behaviors, chromosomal abnormalities, and unknown and undiagnosed disabilities.
The referral process that we have as far as how we get the names of families and students to our program includes several of the local organizations such as First Steps, families that have already received services from birth to age 2, the Head Start, the Parents as Teachers program, local physicians, and that can include within the community but also physicians such as the Thompson Center in Columbia. Capable Kids program provides us with some referrals as well. The local daycares and also the preschool programs may notice a need within their classrooms for some additional assessments, and we see the faith-based preschools as well. In September of this past year, we did a child find where we went out as a team into the community and provided the local preschools with our information and contact and some of the services that we provide so that they're more aware of what's available and they can get that information to the parents that they feel would benefit from us. We also have word of mouth and transfer students. So perhaps a student from St. James has moved to Rolla recently, then if they are in the process of being referred, that we can get that information and continue that through Rolla. So that is our referral process.
Okay, I'm going to talk a little bit about our intake process. As Kathy mentioned, we have students that come Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, but we're not sitting around on Wednesdays doing nothing. That's our days to conduct intake appointments, IEP meetings, and complete evaluations on our students. So we're very, very busy. We have Delinda at the central office do our scheduling for us. They set up appointments for us, and we have as many from 1 to 6 appointments on a Wednesday, on a typical Wednesday. So we're very busy. So what that consists of is parents bringing their children to us. We get to visit with them at that time, see what their concerns are. We go through all the pertinent information about that child even if they don't have a concern, we want to cover it anyway. We discuss their vision and hearing acuity, any health history they may have, what their birth history even was, because sometimes that can impact developmental delays, their fine motor skills, their gross motor skills, their communication involving speech and language, their self-help skills, and any social, emotional, or behavioral issues that they might have. So we go through all those areas with the parent, and then from there, we can determine if we suspect that there is a significant delay or disability, or if there is not. If there's not, we do our best to give those parents strategies and to address their concerns and invite them to come back in 6 months or a year sometimes if they still have concerns. But some parents or some families we can send on their way. But with a lot of our families that come in, we do suspect a significant delay, so we go ahead and schedule evaluations in the areas of concern. And it could be in a gross motor development, fine motor development, speech and language, or even behavioral issues. The PT, the OT, and the speech therapy evals are done at Wyman. If the family has significant behavior concerns, some of our team will go out and do observations at some of the local preschools or daycares just to see what is occurring in their normal environment. So something that a lot of people probably don't know is we even evaluate children before their 3rd birthday. So we are involved. If a parent makes a request prior to that 3rd birthday, we are obligated to complete that evaluation prior to their 3rd birthday. So we're evaluating little bitty kids. I think the youngest one I've done is 2 years, 7 months. So if you see me, with a little one in tow in the hallway, that's one of our students, and we're evaluating them. So anyway, that's what a lot of people don't realize. We start that young. However, we can't start services with them until their 3rd birthday. We do have several formal testing instruments that we use. I have speech and language evaluation standardized tests that I give, and this can tell us if the child is significantly below the average range for his age, or if they're up in that average range, or where their skills fall. And Jill will talk about more specifically how they qualify. And then some children are just not testable. They can't sit at a table. They can't, respond to your questions and directions. And so in that case, we're able to use professional judgment and lots of observations and lots of information from the parents about what's occurring in the home. So we can use professional judgment. Just a figure from this year, we had 70 intake appointments this school year. So we're finished with intakes for the year, but we did a lot of appointments for families. Now, they did not all qualify for even to be evaluated, but we did have that many inquiries. So we have a very large number of families coming in, and I think our team does a really good job considering this is kind of the first point of contact for a lot of those families. They're very young parents, very young children. This might be their first contact with Rolla Public Schools, so we consider that a very important part of what we do to make sure those appointments are thorough and that we answer all their questions and steer them towards services if they do need them. So that's all on the intake process.
I think it's important to follow up with the 70 intakes. Each of those intakes takes about an hour. And then the students that we evaluate, it can take 2 or 3 hours to do the evaluation for each child. And then there's an hour to 2 hour meeting to actually qualify them and place them in services. So there are several hours involved prior to a child ever starting. So looking at the criterion for qualification, our kids are all age 3 to 5, but not kindergarten eligible. So depending on when their birthday falls, they may be with us if they're 5-year-olds. but they cannot start the program until their 3rd birthday. So we have a lot of kids that start on their birthday. Typically, our kids fall under the criteria of a young child with a developmental delay. You'll hear us say YCDD because we throw around acronyms all the time. So our YCDD kids fall 2 standard deviations or more below the norm in one area. So that means like a 70 from 100 is average, so 70 in one of 5 areas: physical, cognitive, communication, social, emotional, or adaptive. If they don't fall 2 standard deviations below in one area, but they fall 1.5 standard deviations below in 2 areas, then they can qualify for services also. Sometimes we continue with that YCDD label until through kindergarten. We can continue that because we feel like those kids need those extra services through kindergarten. They may not continue to qualify with the school-based criteria at that time, so we continue with the YCDD so they can continue to have those early services, hopefully to help close the gap as they move into school age. There are 13 different categorical disabilities then that they can qualify under as they enter kindergarten. Those include intellectual disability, traumatic brain injury, emotional disturbance, autism, language impairment, other health impairment, deaf and blind, hearing impaired, visually impaired, orthopedic impairment, and speech. Multiple disabilities, but there are 13. Sometimes it's difficult for us to say a 5-year-old or 4-year-old is emotionally disturbed or has autism if we don't have a lot of background knowledge, especially when they're just coming in. We meet them for a few hours, and then we have to give them a label. So it's nice to have that young child with a developmental delay, which is kind of a global term, to say why we're qualifying them and not give them a very specific label that may continue for some time. So after early childhood, our kids have a big range of places they go. Our best goal option would be for them to be dismissed from services completely and be successful in kindergarten through high school and beyond. That doesn't always happen, so we do have some kids that are dismissed from services. Some kids are in full-time regular education and may just have support in the regular education classroom. Some kids move into kindergarten with part of their time in the special ed room and part of their time in the regular classroom with regular peers. And then we do have some students that are full-time in special education. And some of our students go directly from us to B.W. Robinson State School. So they move right on to another facility.
Good.
I think that's all we have. Do you have any questions for us?
You don't get to talk?
So if a parent listening right now has a child they believe is delayed, their first step would be to call central office?
They call Delinda Gilardi at central office.
Central office and ask for an appointment.
And ask for one of those Wednesday appointments.
So that'd be the parent's first step. Okay.
Very good.
Thank you.
It was great for us to get to tour this past week.
Yes, that was.
To come to your classrooms and to your therapy room and to the stage, the stage at
Pictures of cute kids.
and the stage at Colonel Wyman Elementary where the OT, PT, and is there a third?
Oh, wait, that's
That's
Jill's
not
favorite.
Oh,
Uh-oh.
Sorry.
that's okay.
There weren't pictures of kids?
Oh, yeah, that wasn't a PowerPoint. I thought you wanted the PowerPoint. And
Oh.
so, no, I don't have that.
I don't know, we just sent pictures on a disc. See, we're technology.
Yeah.
Or I am. There were just lots of pictures. We weren't going to flip.
Cindy, one of the things that you said the other day when we were there is that you provide services to some children who aren't there that don't
Right.
attend school there, but they
Right.
come just specifically for those
They just come to
services.
see me, or they just come to the occupational therapist. Oh, I'm
Oh,
sorry.
talk in there, please.
We just have some children we call itinerant. They just come in for speech therapy, occupational therapy, and/or physical therapy. Some come in for all 3, but they don't participate in our 4-day-a-week program.
Classroom.
So we have that. And the other thing that we do is our district provides a bus from Head Start and brings kids over to me for speech once a week. I serve them in a group, so it's kind of different. It's not individual therapy, but That's just something that our district has decided to provide. So we sort of have a working relationship with Head Start that way.
Good.
They help us identify the kids, and then they remain in that program, but come over to get the speech therapy.
So the 55 that you mentioned, Kathy, does that include those that come in just for services? Okay, thank you.
But there are only a few. I think this year we
Yeah.
have like 5 or 6.
Okay.
We don't
The
have a
rest of
lot
them are
this year.
in the program.
Yeah, other years I've had 10 or 12 that do that.
Right. Thank
Well,
you.
it's great for me to see that the other day when we visited. I don't,
Me as
the rest
well.
of you want to?
Well, just thanks what you guys do every day.
Definitely.
They all said, we were in the same clothes today, and I'm like, depends on.
Or depending on what happened.
Yeah.
Changing clothes first.
Thank you for
Thank
being
you.
here very much. Appreciate it. Appreciate what you do. All right, now we get to hear about Bulldog Preschool.
Bulldog Preschool. Hello, I'm Jamie Cantrell from the Rolla High School, and this is Megan Harshberger, one of my students, and she is handing out to you just put together a little packet of information about the program, as well as there's some folders that she's handing out to you that the students actually get. So don't feel like you have to read all that. I just handed it out so you could follow along. First of all, our program is not really for the preschool children primarily. It's for high school students because it is a child development course first semester. Second semester is an early childhood course. Within that course, the first 4 or 5 weeks, they learn about children ages 3 to 5, how to work with children, what the expectations are in the lab. And the remaining part of the semester, up till about mid-May, we just bring children in ages 3, 4, and 5, 3 days a week, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, for the first 3 hours of the day only. And then my students get to work with them in the hopes that high school students will learn more about young children by having a hands-on, authentic kind of learning instead of reading about them in a textbook. Now, with that said, that it's primarily for high school students, I do want to mention that we pride ourselves on being a preschool, not a daycare, and most of our children that leave Bulldog Preschool, when they go to kindergarten screening, score very high. And in fact, I've had a lot of parents call me and say, can I get my child into your program? I took them in for kindergarten screening. They said they need to stay home for another year. They're not quite ready. And they said your program would be the best one to get them ready. So I take a lot of pride in that, considering we're just a short-term, 3 hours a day, 3 days a week kind of program. We're not a full-time program, but yet the kindergartens say this is where they need to be to get ready. So with that said, if you'll look through your packets here, the third page is just kind of a schedule, a couple pictures. The schedule shows the rotation that my students do. Every single hour, I have 3 groups, a red, a yellow, and a green group that corresponds with the folders. So every hour I may have 7 or 8 students in a red group, 7 or 8 students in a green group, and 7 or 8 students in a yellow group. All of my students, my 20 to 25 students, cannot possibly be in the preschool lab at one time teaching. So they rotate in and out of these 3 areas you see here, from the planning to the teaching to the observing. And so if red group plans one week, you'll see the very next week they teach and the very next week they observe. There's certain themes, so every week the theme changes. You look down here at the bottom, and the box at the bottom shows first hour, second hour, third hour. It shows all the subjects that we teach. So in the 2.5 hours that the children are there, they get math, art, writing, circle time, PE, music, social studies, language, and science. All about 10 to 15-minute centers, and we rotate very quickly, and you'll see an example of one of those centers here in a minute. This second page, this is just my scoring guides. And this is how I score the group. When they are in the regular classroom planning, I'll pop in with them, see how they're doing. I really don't grade them too heavily on this until after they actually teach, so I can compare their teaching grade to their planning grade and see how well did you use your time, how creative were your centers, how much effort did you put in. The second page is a lesson plan, And all of my students, when they're teaching, they have to fill out a lesson plan. So the week prior to teaching, say Megan here would do social studies. So she would fill out a lesson plan on a social studies activity that would be appropriate for the children. And at the bottom, the top here, one thing I love about this, it says the goals from the Bloom's taxonomy chart. And those of you teachers here know exactly the lovely chart I'm talking about, where we have
You know
to.
Bloom's taxonomy.
You guys know Bloom's taxonomy. Where they have to write down children will demonstrate this gross motor skill, or children will examine the effects of gravity, or children will conclude what happens when these chemicals mix. Down here at the bottom, it's step-by-step instructions, and then at the bottom, they have to say, what do you want them to know? What learning concept do you want them to know? If it's the word pride, then we want them to know that it is a family of lions. And then below it, it says, how are you going to ensure that they know that? I tell them it's not enough to teach. If the children don't get it, then we haven't done our job. So they actually step into our shoes, and they don't just say, well, I taught that. Okay, but did the children learn that? It's not enough for you to go in with your supplies and say, here you go, ta-da, I did my thing. If the children didn't walk away with a word, a definition, a concept, or being able to demonstrate writing or a math concept, then we didn't do our job. So I think that piece puts us ahead of a lot of the daycares in the area. The teaching scoring guide shows, the next page shows how I exactly grade them. So while they're teaching, I will stand over them. For example, I'll stand over Megan and I will write down everything she says, everything she does. Are her children on task? Did they learn the concept? Did she get them from one place to another without losing any of them? That kind of thing.
That would be a good thing.
Here's this next picture. I believe this is Jamie's daughter, Chloe Myers, in the process of teaching a center. And I have a little short video if you want to play that. It's just about a minute long. A former student in the middle of starting out a center. I believe it's Pirate Week, so if she comes in looking like a pirate, that's probably why.
Like a bulldog to me.
Yeah.
You know, mean looking
Really
bulldog
good
for
costume.
preschool.
Should be that first one. There you go.
Boys and girls, how are you doing today? Are you guys doing good? How good? What am I wearing on my eye today? What am I wearing? Oh, I got you one. It's called an eye patch. Can we all say it? Patch. Say you patch really, really loud. Oh my goodness, that was fantastic. So there are many types of patches, and I'm going to show you some. When do you think this patch goes on? Does anyone have any idea? I have some holes in my jeans. How do you think I can fix it? Do you think I can put this patch over my hole? Yeah. Thanks, look, do you see a hole anymore? Alright, you can put a patch over clothing. So what is this? Is this a clothing patch? Yeah, what? Everyone's got to touch it and tell me what it is.
So there's the part of the assessment piece where they had to say the word. You can shut it off if you want to. It's
Very
kind of long.
good.
But she goes on and talks about a tire patch and then an eye patch, and then they have a little paper doll that they have to put a patch, a Band-Aid patch on, and then a clothing patch on. So there's always a hands-on element with it, but the concept was the word patch and the different types of patches that were in that.
Cool.
The next page is a self-evaluation, and every student at the end of their teaching, the end of that week on Fridays and Mondays are kind of our regroup days. We take bulletin boards down, we put more back up, and the next group gets ready to go, and we talk about what went well, what didn't go well, what can we do to improve, and then every student has to fill out one of these, what their strengths and weaknesses were and how they did with their teaching. The last rotation that the students do, so they'll plan, teach, and observe, and then they'll do that again, plan, teach, and observe. So every group goes through this cycle 5 times in the semester. The observing week, and here's how I score them. Basically, they sit to the side. You may see students sitting to the side in a video there, and they just watch a child. They watch them the whole semester. They write down everything that child does, anytime they move, anything they say, and they have something like this to show 3 pages like this at the end of the week, so a page a day. Here's a sample, I believe, from Ellen Spooner back from 2010. And they write down everything the child does and separate it into physical, social, emotional, and intellectual development. They also, the next few pages, I'm not going to go through all that, it's a huge packet. It shows what children should be able to do emotionally at age 3, age 4, age 5, physically at age 3, 4, and 5. All the developmental areas, what are the standards for that age. And then if you look at the very last page, this is the culmination of Bulldog Preschool. They have to write a case study over their child that they observed. And they use their notes, they use that packet of checklist, and they have to write a 5 to 10 page paper. Is their child developmentally appropriate, emotionally, socially, physically, and intellectually? They have to give specific examples and kind of make an assessment. Is this child where they need to be? So for my class, they really learn about young children and that being stubborn, defiant, and boastful is normal for a 4-year-old. It not only helps them if they want to go into the profession of teaching, but it helps them to become a better parent and understand that these things are normal so that they're not as likely to get frustrated or abuse their child or things like that. We do have a huge waiting list for Bulldog Preschool. I do open enrollment every year on May 10th. This year it's May 9th because May 10th was on a Saturday. Open enrollment starts at 7:30 in the morning. And keep in mind, these parents are signing their children up for January 2015. And I say open enrollment is 7:30 because if I don't do it on that day, if I just let people on a waiting list, I would have people calling me saying, my child's not born yet, but can I get them on the list when they're 3? And that just got crazy. So what we do is they can email me 7:30 in the morning on May 9th or that day prior, and I'm usually full by 7:45. So, and I already have a huge waiting list at this point of parents waiting to get in. And there's, at some point, I just quit taking names because there's no way I can pull that many kids off a waiting list. Most of our children this year, I was able to pull 1 child off the waiting list. Most parents, they sign them up in May, and then come January, they're committed and they want them in there. So I think that says a lot for the program, that there is a huge need, and the parents are very excited. We also do an end-of-the-year program, and they get to sing songs and do that kind of thing. So that's how my program runs. I'd like to let Megan talk for a few minutes, and she'll kind of tell you about her experience.
I just wanted to start off by saying it was such an amazing honor to be able to work with such wonderful children. Not only has their own knowledge expanded with the things that I've taught them, but my knowledge has also expanded with the things that they've taught me. Growing up, I've always loved watching and babysitting kids for friends and family members. This class has not only reassured me that I want to have a career dealing with children whenever I'm older, but it has given me the experience I need to be prepared. In the childhood lab, there are 3 different groups that we split amongst ourselves. Those groups include the planning group, the observing group, and the teaching group. While planning, we keep focused and decide what things will be best for the children. We construct our own lesson plans and prepare all the different things that are necessary for our week of teaching. Planning ahead of time is very important because it keeps us on track and everything we need is organized. The teaching group has 6 different subjects that we split amongst ourselves. Those subjects include art, writing, math, circle time, PE, music, science, social studies, and language. Each teacher has a helper, and there's a timer to keep track of all the time we have left in our centers. Teaching these kids has given me so many new experiences, from the what's next to the that was so cool to the I'm gonna miss you are all things these kids have said to me. From the very first day of preschool to the very last day, I've seen so many improvements. The kids reciting their ABCs, counting to 20, and knowing the difference between their shapes and colors. The observing group takes as many notes as possible on the 4 developmental stages that the child goes through, which include physical, intellectual, social, and emotional development. At the end of the year, we take our notes and knowledge on the kid we observed and compose a case study. Through my experience of teaching, I've noticed many different things. For example, it's a little bit harder to keep the attention of a 3-year-old than it is a 5-year-old. Although the kids might get distracted at points, an interesting fact can bring their attention back to the lesson. I've also noticed the different bonds and friendships that were taking place within the preschool. There are so many characteristics that are involved within being a teacher in the childhood lab. These characteristics include responsibility, being prepared, awareness, staying on task, being organized, patience, communication skills, and much, much more. Of course, my standards of myself were to reach above and beyond when I was teaching. I've tried coming up with unique centers that the children would have fun with, but at the same time, they would be learning a new concept that would enhance their learning experiences and grow. The preschool isn't just about teaching and dealing with the children, but also about dealing with the people I work beside. My group of teachers were amazing to work with. We helped each other, motivated one another, were hardworking, and most importantly, we had fun because this is something we love to do. Working together with classmates gave us the opportunity to achieve higher levels of success. Because when someone would throw out an idea for our bulletin boards we put up each week, another person would elaborate on that idea even more. And that one idea was turned into something special because we all got the opportunity to work together. Being able to work with other people is such a great quality to have. It's great in the workforce, with classmates in school, and even at home. I've learned to not worry so much about doing the right thing because there are many different ways of doing things. What someone does in one center is completely different from what somebody else does in another center. That's what we look for within the lab. If all the teachers always had the same ideas, it wouldn't be fun for the kids. It is always a good thing to believe in the child if they don't even believe in themselves. Giving kids answers or taking over an activity for them makes them start to feel incompetent. The whole point in the childhood lab is to give these kids experience and knowledge to get them prepared for kindergarten. These children also love making bonds with the teachers. A little girl came up to me with a book in her hand. I asked her if she wanted me to read that book, and she quietly said yes. Halfway through the book, I noticed that most of the kids were listening to me. There were giggles and laughter, and when I asked what was going to happen next, they all gave me their most wild idea. I knew from that point on this is something I wanted to do with my life. I want to be that person to make a difference in a child's life. Whether that difference be microscopic or measurable, I know that those are the things that matter in life.
Very good.
Good job.
Thank you.
Fantastic.
It's very good. Thank you. You have any questions or comments?
We enjoyed visiting your group too.
That's right. That was
really,
fun.
really interesting.
Yeah. See the kids, the little
We had
ones as
fun
well
that
as the
week.
high school kids.
Here we went there,
A lot of people
or that day.
Yeah, yeah. And how many years have you been?
I started 16 years ago, and I wrote the grant my first year, so I've been doing preschool 15 years.
15 years in the preschool. That's fantastic. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And
Thanks
next
for-
year it'll be dual credit, by the way, with NSE.
Oh, yeah, that's
Which is
right.
awesome.
From them today.
Dual credit to take the course. Now, if the students took it this year, do they get a chance to take it again for the dual credit?
Well, a lot of them want to know that too.
Yeah, this father wanted to know that one.
We might try to work something out.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks for sticking
Thanks,
around.
ladies.
All right.
Do you want these back?
Mr. Duncan and Mr. Chapman are here. to-
Jamie, do you want these
Oh.
folded back?
Yes, I'm sure she does.